This next one is a long question, comes in via email. Dr. Dolly, I hope you get a chance to see this, maybe speak about it on your podcast. I love your book and listen to your podcast frequently. I wanted to get your advice because essentially every young doctor I speak to is in this predicament. I live in a high cost of living area, northern New Jersey. I started working as a hospitalist last year, and prior to starting, we deeply considered purchasing a home with a physician loan. We were looking at homes that sold for $450,000 in 2018. So we listed it for $620 in 2022, and the house would go for $700 for a house that needed $100,000 of work today. Given this, we decided to rent, which has been working out decently, but we'd much rather be homeowners. After a year of working and living like a resident, despite our high rent, we've been able to save about $200,000. Wow, very impressive. Dr. Dolly, at this point, there's not a reasonable home in our area that is listed for less than $800,000, which would mean an enormous monthly payment. We feel lost. Right now, there is a deadlock because most homeowners aren't selling because they would be trading a low interest rate for a rate around 8%. We're worried that as soon as their interest rates begin to drop, it's going to be just like 2020, where there were 20 offers on a home after it's listed for 24 hours. Is there a question there? No question. That's the email. Okay, so I guess the question is, what do you do with this? Yeah, it's an issue, right? Everybody wishes they could buy a home in 2009. But guess what? You can't buy a home in 2009. I mean, I bought one in 2010, but I also bought one in 2006. That one didn't work out nearly as well as the one I bought in 2010. And so we can't necessarily time our life with the real estate market. Right? I mean, we'd all love to buy our house after houses have gone down 50% in value and interest rates have gone to 2.5%. But if you sit around renting, hoping for that to happen, you're probably never going to get in the game. And that's fine for some people if their life is such that they want to rent their entire life. That is an additional risk in retirement that you don't have as much control over your housing costs, but that can work out for some people. However, I'm a big fan of ownership. I like seeing docs own their jobs. I like seeing them, owning stocks and real estate in their portfolios. I like seeing them own their homes because I think in the long run, most of the time it works out to own your home. In the long run, I'm talking 5+ years. Most of the time, you're going to come out ahead having owned the home. But you do have to be able to get into the home. Now, I mentioned earlier in the podcast, the rule of thumb is 2x, so I don't know what you're making as a hospitalist. Let's guess $250,000, $300,000. 2x would be, $600,000. Add on your $200,000 down payment. That's $800,000. You're saying there's not a reasonable home in your area listed for less than $800,000. Well, that puts you in a high cost of living area. Or you need to adjust what reasonable looks like. I mean, bear in mind, even as a hospitalist, even in Illinois, you're still in the top 3 or 4% of incomes in that area, right? So if you can't afford a home, who can? So maybe you need to lower your view of what a reasonable home is, and maybe you need to do what people have done for decades, which is start with a starter home rather than a big fancy doctor home. And that's okay to do. But here's the deal. Sometimes you have to stretch a little bit in these high cost of living areas. And stretching is going to 3 to 4x, not going to 10x. Okay, that'll kill you. Realize there are consequences for stretching. It means you're going to drive a crappier car. You're going to work longer. Maybe you won't have as much for college savings. Maybe you won't go on as nice of vacations. There are financial consequences. You don't get a pass on math, but you'll probably have to do it. If that's important to you to live in a high cost of living area, you're going to have to put more of your budget toward that. And yeah, it's going to be an enormous monthly payment. That's the way it works, especially at high interest rates. Maybe you'll be rescued when interest rates go down and you can refinance. But the time is right for you to buy a home. And it sounds to me like the time is right. You want to stay there. You've been there for a year. You've saved up a down payment. You got your financial ducks in a row. I'd go buy if I were you. And if $800,000 doesn't work, well, maybe go see what you can find for $1.2 million. Continue saving that down payment. Recognize this is going to be a big part of your financial life for a while, and go get the home. Hope that's helpful.
The hosts of The White Coat Investor are not licensed accountants, attorneys, or financial advisors. This podcast is for your entertainment and information only. It should not be considered professional or personalized financial advice. You should consult the appropriate professional for specific advice relating to your situation.